Hi, I'm Gudrun from GE Designs, and I want to show you a really quick tutorial for a really adorable stocking, actually a little mini stocking that you can make for the holidays. Really quick with a quilt as you go method, and this is something you can make quickly for a little gift, hostess gift. You can even put gift cards in there, something really fun and easy to do. So let's get started, and I'll show you what you will need to make the stocking. First of all, I want you to go to the website gequiltdesigns.com. You need to print out the pattern. It will include the outline of the stocking plus some fabric requirements and instructions. So what you will need for the stocking is strips in various lengths, 1.5 inch strips. I just took some of my strips, 1.5 inch strips from my collection, and did kind of all in these neutrals with a little bit of gold accent. You can of course just cut them up. These were all cut with a stripology ruler. Then you will need 2 pieces of lining that are 8 by 10, and you'll also need a piece of batting the same size, 8 by 10, and a piece of the backing fabric that is 8 by 10, which is you can have any fabric you want. 8 by 10 as well. Then you will need the cuff fabric, which you will be cutting at 5.5 by 8.5. And then you'll need a little strip of ribbon, about 6 inches, for the hang tag. And that is all you need. And we're going to be doing this quilt as you go. So the first thing we're going to do is take our batting. I'm using a fusible batting from Bozel that is fusible on one side. So I'm going to take one of my lining pieces and layer that on top of the fusible side, so the right side is up on the lining. Just align that, and whenever I'm ironing these, fusing these together, I like to use steam, and my iron actually has 2 settings for steam, so I can have some extra steam to get these fused together really quickly, and it will hold very well. Like so. Now we're ready to start piecing our stocking, and I like to actually draw an outline before I start. So you want to take that outline that you printed out of the stocking and cut it out, and then you just want to place that on the batting side like so, and just draw a rough outline. Now this does not need to be accurate because we're going to be trimming that and drawing that all up again. So I just like to make kind of an outline like this so that I know kind of how long my strips are going to need to be, and I'm not wasting a whole lot of fabric piecing the whole backing. So this is all you need. And then we just take our strips, and they don't need to be cut to size because we're just going to cut them with scissors as we go. So I just take the first piece, and I want to lay them I don't want them to be straight, so I want it to have a little bit of an angle to it. So the first strip, for example, I would lay like this. And what I want to do, I lay it right side up, making sure that the edges or the end of the strip is extending those drawn lines on both sides. So like that. And then I just take scissors and make sure here's my line. So I'm going to go a little bit outside of that, like so. And that is my first piece. And then I'm going to take another piece of fabric for the second piece that's going to be coming above this one. So when I'm figuring out the size of this one, you always want to lay it how it's going to end up after you sew it. So this is how it's going to end up. So I want to make sure that this end sticks outside of those lines, and then it's going to extend these lines on that side. So this is the length I need for this piece. And now I'm ready to fold it over, and I'm going to sew this side. I like to use pins when I'm doing quilt as you go because things will move. Best thing is to use a walking foot for your machine. I do not have a machine showing with me here that has a walking foot. However, it is a Singer 301, so they're very powerful machines and will kind of work through anything. So I'm going to see how that works with this project. And you just want to use an approximate 1/4 inch seam. Does not really need to be that accurate because we're just trimming that to size. So now when I get to the end, I just want to cut my threads. I want to pull this out and cut my threads. And then I want to just fold this piece over, and you can finger press. I like to push it out with my fingers first, and if it's not laying flat, you can always take that iron and put it on it lightly. You don't want to over iron when you have the batting there, because that could kind of irritate your batting. Now I'm going to just take the next piece and whatever fabric. Again, I measure it to which way it's going to end up and cut and fold that over. That's going to be on that side, and I can actually fit my other piece on the bottom side too, because we can sew them both at the same time. So fit it, fold it over, and then we can sew each side. And just keep going this way. Just stitch and flip until you've filled and kind of covered that whole outline of the stocking. So once that is done, you would actually have a unit that looks like this. After you've filled all of your stocking outline with strips. And so now it's time to take the other piece of lining. So this is your back, but it's actually going to be the inside of your stocking. So I'm going to take the other lining and make sure it's right sides together with the backing side, like that. I'm just going to flip it over. And now I'm going to take that stocking template and lay that on top of the sewn piece. And now I want to align it, so make sure that it's catching the strips everywhere. And now I want to draw that outline again with my pen. And once I have that drawn, I'm just going to cut it out with my scissors. But I want to cut all of the layers. So both the top that is sewn in with the inside lining, and then also that other piece of lining that I just placed on the bottom. So before I cut this, I'm actually going to make sure to pin it together so it all holds together in a few places. So now I can just cut everything, and no need to be kind of cutting all those pieces before you start sewing. We just do it all at the same time. So cut on the line. So now we have it cut out, and I'm just going to trim this. And now the next step is to take our backing. So now I have it cut out just like this, and I actually took my backing piece and I laid that on the front of the stocking. So this is the front of the stocking. Let me just show you here. And I lay my backing piece on top. It's going to be the 8x10, so I just align it at the top. Make sure I pin it really well through all the layers, because now you have 2 layers of lining, the batting, the front of the stocking, and now the back of the stocking. And again, I just like to use the outline of this to sew with instead of cutting everything out to begin with. So now I'm just going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam all the way around here. So now just what I'm going to do is cut all the way around to trim that backing to the same size as the front using a scissors. And then what I also like to do before I turn everything is kind of snip the corners and cut little V's into the rounded parts. It will help once you turn it, those units to round nicely. What I mean by that is, for example, in the toe, just to cut little V's into the seam like this, just making sure I don't hit my seam. I'm staying away from my seam, but cutting these little V's really helps once you turn your unit. And everything will kind of round very easily. You can also just cut little slits like this. Just making sure you don't go even close to that seam, because that's not gonna be good. So that looks good. So now I'm ready to turn it around. So what you want to do here is you're going to go in between the backing and then the front piece. Over on the other side we have the two linings, but you want to go between the backing and the patchwork portion and turn the stocking right side out. It's a little bit harder with a smaller stocking like this. I have a pattern in my Fast and Furious holiday book that is the full-size stocking using a similar method, but I just love that I don't have to kind of cut everything out beforehand. I can just kind of wing it, and then this will give me a really finished inside with no raw edges anywhere. So now it's turned, so I got the back on this side, but now I can go ahead and go between my lining pieces. So then you will have two layers. You have the backing fabric and a lining on one side, and you have the lining and the batting in the front here. I'm just going to use a little tool to push out my corners and round that heel out and the toe. And now I'm ready to just give it a good press. And it's good to have a little bit of steam. That will just make that stocking nice and flat. And now the next step is just to put the cuff on, and that's really, really easy. Takes care of that raw edge on the top really nicely. So we take our cuff fabric, we're gonna fold it along the long side, and we're gonna sew together with a 1/4-inch seam. So it looks like this. With that seam on the 1/4-inch side, we're going to go ahead and press that seam open. So you want to make sure you press it open. So just open it up, give it a press, and let me just show how you can do that with your iron. And now we're going to fold it right side out in half. So you're going to fold it, just aligning the seams in half. And then give it a press. So we're going to fold it up and give it a press, making that seam be kind of in the middle on one side. So you'll have a folded edge on one side. You have created this little loop thing, folded edge on one side, and the raw edges are all on the same side, seam right along the back. Give that a press this way. Then we're going to take our hang tag and just fold it in half, raw edges together. And first and foremost, we want to place that on the inside of the stocking, because that is going to be in the seam, and you want that to be on that corner. So I'm just going to pin it right in here and grab a pin for that. And then I'm going to place my cuff so that the raw edges are on the top. I'm going to place that on inside my stocking too, making sure that that seam is on the back side. Let's do that. That'll be better. So then we kind of go inside it and open it up. Open it up like this. And we're going to pin all 4 sides. Just put a few pins. We can just align this pin and use it again. And now we're just going to sew that seam. That's a little bit tricky with such a small opening. If you've sewn garments before, I'm sure it's not a big deal. It's a little harder because we got the thickness of the batting in there, but I still fairly simple. So there we are. And always what is left to do now is pulling that cuff up and then folding it over the raw edges of the stocking, like so. And then pulling that little hang tag out. And that is all she wrote. We'll end with giving this cuff a little bit of a press. And that is it. We're ready with our little mini stocking to hang on the Christmas tree, on the mantle, on a little cupboard or whatever, or to give away as little gifts. So I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.